Beep, 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 beep. Morning all, afternoon all, evening all, wherever you happen to be. Evening all. I haven't thought about that for a long time. My God, it's a blue lamp and it was Dixon Dock Green. I was a nipper then. Actually, I don't think I was here. Anyway, enough of Dixon and Dock Green. That's not the reason I'm talking to you today. What have we got today? Stonewall. I wish I could never hear of these people again. I do, but one would be remiss if I didn't bring to your attention that Telegraph rapscallion reporter Ewan the Wonderful Somerville, Ewan Somerville, which I love that. I love that name. It reminds me of the Wicker Man. I don't know why. Sounds like somewhere you put men in a wicker penis. The town of Somerville. Actually, wasn't it called Somerville? I'm going to have to look now. Sorry, Ewan. I'm not taking the bicky, but I'm going to have a look now, aren't I? So, in the Telegraph, Ewan is reporting on the 14th of January, so I'm a bit behind, not like me, but I'm a little bit behind, is reporting that, get this, how the world turns. Stonewall eroding gender pay gap monitoring among civil servants. When are they going to get a grip of the public sector, right? If you've ever seen a program called Yes Minister or Yes Prime Minister, then you will understand, as I do, because I worked for them for years, as I do, that ministers don't always want to do what the power of government wants them to do, i.e. what the people want them to do, and they'll obfuscate their way out of a paper bag. So that's how they work, They tend to, they can often be blockers, and the civil service is a behemoth at best, and takes some turning, right, in terms of getting things done. Now, they're great people in it, right? I had some fab times teaching the civil service. Well, the fun we had. Good God, it was mad. So, anyway, but with government. 6 government departments are among employers urged to check inequalities by self-identified gender, according to the Charities Training Scheme. It's a Stonewall. Again, what are they doing? So what this means is, just so that we can get our head around it before I go on further with Ewan's great article, is that they're saying that the gender pay gap, which incidentally was originally thought of to make sure that women weren't paid less than men, right? We have laws against that now. I don't know why. Now, my GC friends and the women I know will know I'm not a fan of this, right? I think it's a load of nonsense, right? Okay? Absolute bloody nonsense. If you're paid less than a man who's doing the same job as you are, take me to court. Right? Now, there's also, when it comes to things like that, great work's done in unions on this, right? So, for example, if you're on the checkout till at Asda or in the warehouse and there's a differentiation between the pay rates for men and women, then the unions will go, hang on a minute, let's get this in court and see whether or not there should be parity. So there's still work to be done. I'm not saying that for one second that there's work to be done, but generally the work to be done is at the lower end of the wage scale where people are on minimum wage or working jobs that most of us wouldn't want to do, not, at the snooty end of the A-list bloody C-suite senior jobs, or university lecturers who are wibbling because they're getting 46 instead of 48k. I'm not there for that, right? Unless there's a disparity between you because you're male and female, in which case it is against the law to do that for the same job, right? Enter Stonewall. We're having none of that because that can only happen if there are only 2 sexes. Blah, 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 blah. What about blah, 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 blah. So that's what they're doing, right? Okay, they're saying we can't possibly have any representation whatsoever that talks about reality. Because if it talks about reality, then we're unreality. And if we're unreality, people are going to defund us. We're going to defund you, right? So they're telling people they should do it by self-identified gender, right? Men, it's time for you to say that you are women, to identify your gender as women with a pay gap, and we'll eradicate the pay gap altogether. It won't exist. This is a men's rights movement. For God's sake. Anyway, I don't agree with it, this gender pay gap nonsense, and I've had many a conversation with people. Have a look at the GI index and try and understand it in that respect. But also, if you're really worried about a pay gap, here's the one that I would like us to worry about a bit more, okay? I'm Joe, and I work in an organisation, a private company, and I clean the toilets and make sure that the reception is stocked up with, flowers. And I look after the basic stuff that keeps us going, the stuff that most of us don't ever want to think about. And I'm paid minimum wage for doing that in a company with 4,000 employees. And the head of the company, who started the company, who rightly should receive good remuneration for providing employment for 4,000 people, gets himself 20 million a year. Right? That's the hypotheticals on this one, right? What I'm saying is that the gap we should be worried about is the gap between Joe and him, or Joe and her, or Joanne and him, or whatever it may be. So if that person gives themselves 20 million and gives Joe 15 quid an hour or 10 quid an hour, whatever the minimum wage is these days, I think it's 10 quid an hour, that's the gap you want to look at. Right, okay, fine. And that's the gap taxation should be based upon. Now people are going to scream at me, that's equity, you're calling for equity. I'm not calling for equity, I'm calling for market forces. Right, I'm calling, people could say, if that was public, people could say, I ain't doing business with you. And I'm not doing business with you because of this. Now, there'd be kerfuffle, there'd be job losses, there'd be all sorts of problems. But hey, if we're going to do it, let's do it properly. Let's not fart about worrying about the gender pay gap when the biggest problem is people that are on minimum bloody wage, who are doing jobs that are vital but not scalable. Right? So it's fascinating to me, all this nonsense. It just proves when Stonewall get involved with this isn't happening at the base level. People don't give a monkey's toss. This is happening with privileged people with too much time on their bloody hands. Right? So Stonewall are at it. So Stonewall has been accused of eroding gender pay gap monitoring among civil servants after fresh diversity training surfaced. Fresh diversity training surfaced. Honest to God, your turn of phrase, Ewan. After fresh diversity turd floats. Come on, Ewan, you can do it. Let's have more of that. So the charity, he keeps saying it. Stop saying LGBT charity. Can you please call it what it is, Ewan? Right? It's a trans lobby group. A trans and queer lobby group. Call it what it is. It's got nothing to do with me. The LGBT charity marks hundreds of public sector employers on their diversity credentials each year in return for a league table ranking in the Workplace Equality Index. The WE. Right? Why? Why do you care? Stop doing it. The UK's largest such benchmarking scheme. But there's that. There's the Race Charter and there's Athena Swan. That's from Advance AG. I mentioned them the other day. It's all... Cut it out. It's all got to go. So, 6 government departments. NHS England. Where are the NHS again? 6 regional NHS bodies and 4 police forces were among the 400 employers to take part last year, proudly celebrating their ranking in the Stonewall Top 100 Employers list. If I went to get a job, not going to happen because nobody's going to employ me now because of, me, right? I went to get a job. I walked in the door and they said, well, the first thing we'd like to tell you is that we're a very proud Stonewall employer. We were number 9 in the list. I'd be there going, oh, God. Oh, no. How do I get out of this without losing face? That's what I'd be doing. Can you imagine the bloke saying to me, now, Barry, what we're looking for is somebody going to come in, going to drive our results forward, going to help increase our productivity and make us part of the Stonewall Champion Scheme. And me saying, fantastic, that's great. Hire me and I'll help you look for him. Just these people. So, what's happened is, in these various companies, the Telegraph has learned that Stonewall is urging employers to monitor inequalities by self-identified gender. I'm a woman today. Rather than sex within their organisation. Rather than sex. Here's why sex matters. Sex matters. On Saturday, women's rights campaigners condemned it as shocking and disturbing. Bloody right. The gender pay gap is an official equality measure. Well, I'm not impressed with it, right? I'm not convinced yet, folks. Employers with more than 250 staff are legally required to waste time publishing this. Oh, that doesn't know. Sorry, you didn't put that. I put that in. Are required to publish their gender pay gap annually. What for? What for? What does it tell you? What does it mean they're going to have to do if they have to gerrymander it? I'm not happy with it, right? The UK gender pay gap remains almost 15%. It's a mother gap. It's a motherhood gap, isn't it? Isn't that what it really is, folks? It's a motherhood gap. It's down from 27.5% since 1997, though among full-time employees it increased from 7 to 8.3% between 2020 and 2022. It's a motherhood gap, isn't it, really? It's not a gender pay. It's got nothing to do with gender at all. It's a sex pay gap. Mothers. Right? However, in official training, Stonewall advises employers. It's all in the links. He's done a really good job here, Ewan. All the links are in there, so it's in the doobras, so you can have a look. It advises that best practice, in brackets, best practice. That's another one of those words I can't stand. Well, best practice. Well, if you're practicing, I don't want you dealing with it. Stop practicing and start doing it. right? Best practice for their internal human resource systems and diversity monitoring forms to include 5 options for the question, what best describes your gender? You only need one. Immaterial. I'm immaterial gender. What would that be? I don't know. I have to think about that. These 5 options should be man, non-binary, woman, I use another term, or I prefer not to say. Don't ask it at all. Mind your damn business. Now, ooh, I'm baking a ham. Smells good. Right, ooh. God, I'm hungry. Right, okay, so the question must be explicitly inclusive of non-binary identities. Get stuffed with your non-binary wibbling nonsense. Bugger off. Sick of them now, aren't you? The question must be explicitly inclusive of non-binaries. Staff members leading the session told managers and marks would not be awarded on the submission form if there is not an open-ended box for limitless gender identities. They are absolutely deranged. In which case, why bother to collect it? They also didn't suggest, is what they miss out, see, that's what they didn't suggest any sex-based monitoring. So they don't want to monitor it. They are insane, right, okay? They're a cult. They worship at the church of a cult. They kneel at the altar of the cult. They are in our public sector organisations and they are a cult. They are an equity, gender, queer, trans, blah, blah, lens, cult. It's that simple. Come on, government, do something. So anyway, we wouldn't award marks, said the Stonewall trainer, if you're asking about sex rather than gender. If systems were to separate trans women who are born male from cis women, this would be a red flag. And Stonewall would immediately have to escalate that and note down this happened because it's immediately harmful. They are the Stasi. They are totalitarian. They are a danger to the public. Get them out of the public sector. There's no such thing as cis. There's only women and men. Cut it out. They would immediately have to escalate that. Really? To who? What is the result of that escalation? They're blackmailing people with their nonsense, untruths, lies and falsehoods, based on the idea that the world is socially constructed and by language we are drawn. You can get to hell. The Stonewall trainer also explained that bosses should be analysing the spread of staff across different pay grades and levels within the organisation in gender identity that is explicitly inclusive again of non-binary identities, blah, blah, blah. So it's not just doing pay gap analysis within binary gender, but actually expanding that to be inclusive of trans identities and non-binary identities as well. No. You're either male or female. Get over it. On Saturday, however, Stonewall said that it did not recommend open-ended answers for reporting legal gender to HM Revenue and Customs, which must be male or female. They are so deranged. It's like a sort of, organisational cognitive dissonance. Essentially, we know what they're doing. We know what they're doing. Right? There's Baroness Jenkins of Kennington, who co-founded the Women to Win campaign to boost Conservative women MPs in public office, said, gender pay gap monitoring has always been a lifeline for women's equality within the workplace and relies upon clear definitions. Women are adult human females and sex is binary and immutable. It is shameful that Stonewall is being given a free pass to nakedly erode women's equality from within Whitehall. Again, another Baroness. We like these people. Baroness Nicholson of Winterbourne. We know who you are, Emma. Baroness, a former vice chairman of the Conservative Party, said it was a pernicious and insidious invading of women's rights. Stonewall then responded with, what a tangled web we weave when we practice to deceive. To be clear, Stonewall strongly supports gender pay gap reporting. We do not advocate to scrap it, and there is nothing in our guidance that would prevent organisations from being able to understand the difference in pay between cis women and cis men. Absolute rubbish. Your entire raison d'etre is to disrupt. Your entire reason for existing is to disrupt. If you're a company and you're still dealing with Stonewall, you are going to have problems. Get them gone. It's not difficult. Now, they're paying them to do this to them. There's some masochism going on here, isn't there? Oh, it's all a bit... It's like a sort of corporate bang me on the bottom with a Woman's Weekly, isn't it? Let's do it. Let's do it. Do it while the mood is right. Oh, for God's sake. So, Ofsted, the Cabinet Office, they've all quit Stonewall. Well done, Ewan. It's a great article, lovely bit of uncovered stuff there. We need to get these people gone, and we know this. We already well aware of what they are and what they're doing. I just wish that companies would hurry up. I'd tell them if I was still on LinkedIn, but they blocked me. Blocked me and banned me and won't let me on because of my beliefs in gender. They won't let me on. So, any of you out there watching who happen to be on LinkedIn, I would love to see what would happen if you were to post some of my videos and then let me know what the result is, because that would really tick them off. Come on, do something nefarious. It won't hurt you. Let's be mischievous and cause some disruption. Post my videos on LinkedIn. That's my ask today. Let's piss them off. All right, folks, have a great day. I'll see you later. More news soon.